3, 2, 1.
Welcome to the Horror Chronicles, the chilling realm where nightmares come alive. Brace yourselves, dear viewers, for a bone-chilling tale that will grip your souls and keep you awake at night. In a city shrouded in darkness and foreboding, a young boy named Brad embarks on an ill-fated adventure with his sister and friends. Drawn to the ominous allure of the high cemeteries atop a desolate hill, they seek to awaken the spirits of the dead. Little do they know, their journey into the realm of the supernatural will unleash a terror beyond their wildest nightmares. Get ready to witness their descent into madness and face the wrath of the restless souls that dwell within the high graves. To stay updated on all the latest realistic horror stories, please subscribe to my channel and check out the previous stories if you haven't already. By subscribing, you will receive notifications for future updates, so please hit the subscribe button, and if you enjoy this video, I kindly ask you to give it a thumbs up and share it with your friends. Let's aim to reach 2,000 likes together. The high graves, as if you were one of its residents, you would be able to see the old cemeteries built on top of that large hill that overlooks the whole city. You will see them from everywhere you are, from the street, from work, or even from your room window. If this part reaches 2,000 likes, I will do part 2. Welcome, my name is Brad. At the age of 14, I moved with my family, consisting of my father, mother, and my little sister, Anastasia, to a new city, where my father's work was transferred there. From the first moment, my sister and I felt that we were not happy with the move, let alone that we moved away from our home and our friends. And we came to a place where we knew no one, but really, the new city is strange, for it arouses anxiety in me, and I will not speak of its strange and terrifying name in itself, but unfortunately, it is quite suitable for it. If you stand in any part of it, you will see those cemeteries on that high hill, with their tombstones that look as if they were uneven teeth on the green grass, this on sunny days. But in the evening, it is quite different. When that cemetery is very frightening, the thick fog surrounds it on all sides, and its tombstones appear as if they are floating and waiting without a link. Yes, indeed, from afar, they appear as if vague ghosts and shadows were wandering in the midst of the fog. This is what I see from the window of my house, located at the bottom of the big hill. Today is the first day of the summer vacation. My sister and I and some of our friends whom we met from school decided to take an exceptional adventure to break the well-known boring routine of the vacation. We decided to go at night to those cemeteries. You ask why? To summon ghosts, of course. When the promised day came, we all gathered at my house. My parents were invited to dinner with a neighbor, and they had gone to meet the invitation, so our house was the most suitable place for us to meet. We arranged our things that will accompany us on our trip to the cemeteries. We took with us batteries for lighting, some snacks, water, and of course, a piece of cardboard, a pencil, and a small lens. We got out of the house and put on climbing shoes to help us go up the hill. The fog was so thick that we could hardly see what we were stepping on. It was cold, and the wind was hitting us hard, as if it was asking us to go back. I had a feeling inside me asking me stop. I signaled to them to stop. Then I set my eyes towards the top of High Grave Hill, and saw the moon cast its quiet light on the hill and its bare trees that looked like skeletons in the midst of this mist. She looked at me and then looked back at the top of the hill and said in a trembling voice, "Lights." Mark inquired, "Lights?" She pointed to that spot she was staring at and said, "Look." We looked at where it was pointing, but we were astonished. There were small intermittent flashes of light, albeit very bright, emanating from among the ancient tombstones. They were interrupted, and moved between the tombs as if they were flying ghosts. And before one of us uttered a word of truth, a terrifying cry sounded above us, an animal and human cry at the same time, a cold, sad, and very close cry. We looked at each other in awe, and Carlos spoke. "Did you hear what I heard? Or am I delusional?" Anastasia looked at me and said, "Brad, that's enough. Please let's go back. I'm scared." I held her to me, saying, "Do not be afraid. For sure this cry is coming from the forest behind the hill. There are no ghosts, and you know this very well." Mark confirmed, "Yes, Anastasia, we just want a little adventure in an atmosphere of excitement and mystery. We want to release adrenaline, but there is definitely no such thing as ghosts, Tamara, so let's go on." After a few minutes we had reached the top. We stood in awe looking at the old tombstones stacked in front of us. They looked old and dilapidated, the atmosphere around us was gripping, and the smell of death permeated the place. We approached a spot free of grass, and put our things. It was a circular spot, in which we sat inside, and the graves surrounding us on every side. Silence was surrounding us. Mark reached into his bag and took out the cardboard paper, the pencil and the lens, and put them in the middle of our sitting on the floor. I finished and put the paper on the ground and put the lens on top of it. I looked at them in silence and whispered, saying, "Who do we summon?" Carlos got up and looked at the tombstones around us and pointed to a grave that seemed to be the oldest of them and said, "What do you think? Do we summon the owner of this grave to ask him about the cause of his death?" I said, "Okay, let's try." His name was David Jones, and it says on his tombstone that he died by hanging. We put our hands on top of each other, and we all held the little lens that we use as a substitute pointer for the original pointer that should be used in the primitive Ouija board that we made to use to summon ghosts, as they say. And before to start, Tamara muttered, whispering, "Are you sure about what we're doing? What if it was real, and the summons really took place?" "That's impossible, Tamara," said Carlos. "Ghosts don't exist, as you know. And this game is nothing more than pure myths that we're just going to try for some excitement, but that doesn't mean any of this is real." I pointed to them in silence, and said, "Let's start." We looked at each other and then called out, saying in a whispered voice that started to get louder and louder, "David Jones. David Jones, we are calling you. Come now to answer the call." Few minutes passed, but nothing happened, indicating that they succeeded. Mark said, "Nothing happened, of course. And what were we waiting for other than this?" Anastasia said, "Well, since we're done, let's get out of here." Then she turned to me, adding, "Please, Brad, let's go back. I'm scared." I gently patted her hand and said, "It's okay. Come on, guys, enough for tonight." "But we haven't done anything yet," Carlos grumbled. Tamara replied, "We won't. Let's straighten it out, and I don't feel comfortable here." Mark sneered, "Is it possible that the reason for the discomfort is because we are in the middle of the cemeteries, dear Tamara?" I smiled and said, "Enough, Mark. Let's go back now." We gathered our things amidst Carlos' grumbling and Mark's mockery of Tamara and Anastasia, and we decided to leave immediately. But when I was watching them, I felt breaths behind me, as if someone was standing exactly behind me. Arrangement, and we walked back to the outer gate, but something strange caught my eye, as if there was a shadow of a person next to the grave of a person named David Jones. I looked there, and as I stood so stiff that they all looked at where I was looking, the tomb was open. To be precise, it was as if what was inside had been dug to get out. We looked at each other in panic, and Mark asked, "What does this mean? Did we summon the ghost as he came out of his grave?" I said, "No, this cannot happen. May someone is joking with us." Tamara said, but I did not see anyone but us. Before one of us responded, I felt a hand around my ankles. I opened my mouth to scream, but no sound came out of me, and the hand tightened its grip on my ankle until I began to feel its coldness around my feet. So a sharp shout came out of me as I tried to kick my feet. No. And I was able to really free myself and fell to the ground. But I didn't see anything. There was nothing strange on the ground, just dry branches. Everyone looked at me strangely, and Carlos said, "Brad, are you okay?" I stood looking at the still tombs and the leaves of the trees, playing with each other, trying to catch my breath, and waiting for my body to stop trembling. Was it really a hand? The ghost hand we called out? Or did my foot get caught in something? I stared at the tall grass between the tombstones, but didn't see anything moving. I turned to Carlos and said, shaking, "Let's get out of here at once." We hastened towards the gate, which had begun to appear before our eyes, but the wind did not blow as the ships desired. Suddenly, loud screams were heard around us, as if they were coming from the air itself. We clung to each other in terror, and the sound of our screams rose when our eyes fell on the tombstones, rising and taking out the bodies. Within it, eroding, pale corpses were advancing towards us with their feeble gait. We could not stand the sight, and ran to the gate, but behind us we found a person, not a person, but a corpse. Most of its limbs had decomposed, and its bones were shining white, its sockets were dark hollows. She raised a decomposing finger, and she pointed to us, saying in a terrifying voice, shrouded in death, "You disturbed my comfort, and your bodies became mine." Voices came from all the structures and turned around us, repeating, "You have disturbed our comfort." We screamed from the horror of what we see, and we no longer knew what to do. The circle of the dead was narrowing around us, and with it, our panic increased, until an idea occurred to me. I grabbed the lamp that was in my pocket and lit it, so the white light shone on the faces of the dead. I shouted at my friends, so they did the same as me. Fleeing from the light, it was causing them excruciating pain, the skins wrinkling and drooping and then falling off withered. We looked at what was happening in disgust and terror until Mark's voice snapped us out of our freeze. "Hurry up before they come back." We ran at full speed through a long line of tombstones towards the gate. The light was reflecting on the mist of the graves, and we were running through the soft grass covered with dew, and behind us, the cries of the dead rose as if they were in agony. We finally reached the gate, and the sun was about to shine. Mark came out, followed by Tamara and Anastasia, then Carlos, and when it was my turn, I felt a hand pull me by the ankle, and David's voice resounded in my ear, "You have disturbed my rest, and your body is mine." I screamed loudly and tried to get away from him, but he was very strong. His hand was like pincers of iron. He kept pulling me until he almost grabbed me completely. But at this very moment, the sun rose, and its bright light flooded the land of the tombs. David shouted and covered his face with his hands, and said in a tone that froze the blood in my veins, You will not run away. I will come back." Then his body melted and turned into a pile of bones amid flabby, wrinkled clothes. We stood panting and trying to catch our breath, and looked at the gate and behind them, the tombstones, still and quiet, as if nothing had happened. Our eyes met in silence, and then we turned back down the hill, all in awe and horror of what we had passed.